How are you doing?
Okay.
Good to see you. Rich Lamb, CBS.
How are you?
Okay. What are you proposing now? What are term limits now, and what would you like to see?
Well, next Tuesday, the voters have a chance to vote. I never thought I'd be doing this, saying it for the third time on term limits, but this time it's different. First of all, this time the city council cannot overturn it any time they want. This has to be, the only way it can be done is by the voters, which I think is very important. We must vote on term limits. Interesting enough, the ballot, you have to turn it over to see the proposition question on term limits. And one of the things we have to do is make people understand that the ballot, by the way, you need a magnifying glass to see things. Turn it over. Question number 1 on term limits, vote yes. And let's really have term limits that the city council can't overturn anytime they want.
Do you regret the fact that the council overturned the term limits this time?
I think the question is, we'll never know what could have been. When it was overturned the first time, the fact is that we were right in the middle of a major recession, and New York could have gone bankrupt. And I remember in 1975, when Abe Beame was there, we almost went bankrupt. If it wasn't for Felix Roy, we would have gone bankrupt. The real question is, we don't know what's in them, but we do know that this mayor made sure that New York was in good fiscal shape. But I really do believe that the time is now that we must vote on term limits permanently. It's the third time. Let's get it done correctly. There's a charter revision that makes it impossible for the city council to overturn it.
Mr. Lauder, the fact that current lawmakers will be exempt from any change to the law. So you could be a first-term city council member and still be eligible to hold office for 3 terms if this goes through.
There's only a few members there, but the question was if that was perhaps a compromise. I wasn't on the commission, but the real aspect is permanently term limits will be 2 terms in the future, and that's what really counts.
Mr. Lauder, talking about trying to organize some sort of referendum next year or have a future charter commission look at closing that loophole. They call it a loophole. Do you think that needs to be dealt with?
We understand is that this charter revision makes it almost impossible for the city council to overturn it without a vote from the people.
Mr. Lauder, do you intend to have this in a statewide term limit?
I would love term limits for the state senate and the assembly, but I don't know if that will happen.
Will you ever try to work as strong as you're working for New York City?
Unfortunately, for the state, it's very difficult. It's a whole different process. But let's talk about New York City.
Has Mayor Bloomberg told you what he thinks of your ad? It says, flip over the ballot, flip off the politicians.
I have not spoken to Mayor Bloomberg. But the fact is, this ad, which should be a very powerful ad, just basically says turn it over. Because once again, the politicians are trying to protect their own time in office. Turn it over, vote yes on question number 1.
And the ad implies that it's on the back of the ballot because politicians want to hide it somehow.
Well, I believe that they put it in the back of the ballot because they do want to hide it. And they do want to make sure that they have all the terms they want. But you know something? 78% of the people want term limits, and they deserve it. And they deserve to have their voice heard.
Do you think they hurt your cause by giving the mayor a pass on a 3rd term?
We'll know next Tuesday, but I believe that the idea at the end is that we have a term limits charter revision, which is much more important than just passing the law originally, because this makes it impossible. There was always this question of would the city council vote themselves in for future terms. Now they can't do it.
Well, what about that color?
How are you?
How are you?
Aren't voters being given Hobson's choice here? Because if they vote yes, they get 2 terms, but it doesn't really kick anybody out until 2021. If they vote no, they get stuck with the 3-term.
No, the choice is the fact that 2 terms in the future, and it's only a third of the city council that's affected. But the whole question is, for the future, it's 2 terms and that's it. But the real question is that it takes it away from the city council anytime they want to change the rule they can.
Right, but there are those legal experts who say that even though you include it in a referendum, that they cannot change it again legislatively, that it hasn't been challenged yet, so that the courts could still rule that the council does have that authority under state law.
These same experts told me 10 years ago or 12 years ago that you could never have term limits in New York City due to law. And when this is there, I don't think anyone is going to change term limits again.
Mr. Lauder, what about that colorful language she referred to, flip over the ballot and flip off the politicians? That gets some attention, I guess.
I don't call it colorful, I call it true. And it's true about what the fact is. Politicians like to stay in office because by staying in office, they don't have to work. I do believe that it's very, very good. Like I say, changing diapers, you get rid of them after 8 years. Enough's enough.
Now you're going to have this on TV, regular TV?
There'll be New York for term limits will have 2 TV commercials. One of them talking about flipping over, another you'll see with a little baby changing his diapers.
And how much is the buy?
I think that's the New York term limits.
But you are funding New York term limits.
I'm one of the funders.
Will you have it in Spanish?
Buy, or?
This will be a major buy, yes.
Mr. Lauder,
Well, they start on Wednesday.
will you have the ad in Spanish too? It's a large Hispanic population here who might be concerned about this.
It's not in Spanish, but I think you don't have to speak English to understand what the ad says.
How do you come down on other political issues? For instance, are you banking Mr. Palladino for governor? Is he here with Mr. Long, who is an avid backer?
I am, as you know, a lifelong Republican, but because of other reasons, particularly I'm the president of the World Jewish Congress, I am not in the act of backing anybody. The only person I went out with Mayor Koch is backing Phillips because he was running against somebody.
Oh, nice.
You got to get on the fan. You're going out with the mayor.
Were you disturbed with some of the comments attributed to Trump?
Yeah. What do you think about
Kelly Silver being
Well, look, I think Dermot should be the law of the land. It was the law of the city. I think it was unconscionable that it was overturned. I think, thank God we're getting another shot at it. I disagree that the third of the council members should be allowed to stay next term. But the bottom line is, hopefully this will put this issue to bed final once and for all.
What do you think of the mayor getting a pass for the third term?
I was not a supporter of that. I was not a supporter of overturning term limits. I believe